Good afternoon. This is Rebecca Leonard. I'm with a firm called Design Workshop out of Austin, Texas. We are working for the city of Greenville to update their downtown design guidelines. Over the last 16 years, since the current design guidelines were written, there's been an enormous amount of change in the downtown area and community-wide, which has necessitated that we relook at these design guidelines to understand areas where we can. Some of the growth, some of the changes are also things that have changed in fashion over the years. For example, rooftop gardens. When the original design guidelines were written, rooftop gardens were not favored, and so there's not a whole lot of guidance written about those in the design guidelines. Design guidelines for downtown. We're going to combine the downtown design guidelines with the West End guidelines in a way that will allow both to maintain their own unique identity and character. In addition, we'll incorporate and update past recommendations with the current market and design trends. I mentioned the example of rooftop gardens. We can add in things like that that we see as being more in demand today than they were 16 years ago. Finally, world-class urban planning and design strategies. We need to make sure that we're building in the best practices and into these guidelines so that they can last the next 16 years. So a little bit about the team. Again, I'm Rebecca Leonard with Design Workshop. We're nearly a 50-year-old company doing landscape architecture, urban design, and planning. We have offices around the world and hope to bring experiences we've had from all over to Greenville so that we can get up to speed on new ideas out there in the world of design guidelines. In addition, we have a number of team members. Metricology, for one, is a team member, and that's Dimitri Batches out of Beaufort. He has a lot of experience in the Eastern Seaboard and coastal cities and the Appalachian area with design standards, with structuring design codes, zoning codes, and comprehensive plans. We also have on our team Chipley Consulting out of Asheville. They are helping us with public outreach. We have McNair Attorneys. This firm will help be our legal advisors to ensure that what we're proposing is within the bounds of the law in the state of South Carolina. And then finally, McMillan Passon Smith, a local architecture firm, will ensure that we are about all the issues that are specific to Greenville, and they'll be our eyes and ears on the ground as we move forward with this project. So the agenda for the meeting is to go over a little context and background about the project. And then for those folks who participated in the actual public meeting, we held a visualization activity, which is all available to do online in a poll that there's a link on the website to. A little bit of context about the project. The area you see shaded in gray here is the C4 zoning, and so the boundary, which is the orange line of the central business district, roughly corresponds with the extent of the C4 zoning. The purple shaded space there is the West End Historic District. So these two boundaries combined equal the specific area we're looking at for the study. We have about a 9-month process, 9 to 12-month process in store. The very first workshop was September 27th, and that's what this presentation, that's where this presentation was first given. After that workshop, we will have an online survey, which you can link to from the website. That'll be open through the month of October. Then the team will get busy putting what we heard during the workshops to use in rethinking the format and rethinking some of the design standards for downtown Greenville. That'll take about 4 or 5 months, and we'll be back in late February to present a draft, a preliminary draft of those guidelines. And we'll hold public meetings again, we'll hold stakeholder meetings, and we'll also couple it with an online survey for maximum public engagement. Once we cycle the guidelines one more time with the input that we receive at Workshop 2, we will provide a draft to City Council for their approval during a council hearing. Let us talk for just a minute about the role and function of guidelines in a community. So there are many things that a community needs to regulate and have policies about. And this tree represents kind of a metaphor for that. So at the very bottom of it, where the roots are what we would call regional planning. These are things that don't stick to city boundaries so much: wetlands, transportation, watershed planning, floodplains, etc. And these things require that multiple jurisdictions work together. Then we have the trunk of the tree, which we would correlate to the comprehensive plan. And this is where the highest city for the city, and also its biggest goals regarding growth, development, housing, open space, etc. These provide the foundation, kind of the sturdy trunk of this tree for all the other policies that come. The bigger branches are ordinances and codes. These are legally binding documents that cities write and can use to review development as it moves forward. This includes, building codes, subdivision codes, zoning codes. Next is the very outer limits of the tree, the leaves and the smaller branches. These are what we would call the design manuals. Plans and design manuals. So the downtown design guidelines would fit here. Also, perhaps road street design manuals, influence of a project. And so we're really focused right out here on some of these outer leaves. We know that people have ideas and concerns that would be better off addressed in some of these more foundational pieces, like the comprehensive plan or the zoning ordinance. We are making note of what we hear in that area, and we'll provide the city a summary of that as well for future planning work. But for this particular project, we're strictly talking about the design guidelines in downtown. A little bit about the goals of the design guidelines. We have a handful of goals that we've put together based on conversations with city staff as well as steering committee. The first goal is to encourage the legacy of urban design excellence. The streetscape that was installed in the 1970s by Halpern is an amazing legacy. Most small towns the size of Greenville don't have. And so it's such a thing that I know the city has and preserved really a turning point and a commitment with the city to urban design excellence, and we need to carry that through. We want to promote the development of diverse places and areas with specific character. The C4 zoning area is a pretty large area, and we want to make sure that there are special nooks and crannies within that larger area that people identify with. So the West End being a great example of that. That's so different from the upper Main Street areas. We also have a goal of providing for a pleasant, rich, and diverse pedestrian experience. This has been, again, since the 1970s with the installation of your wonderful streetscape on Main Street, been the core of what has been your success as a city. Providing an environment where pedestrians love to get out, spend time, walk from business to business, from their place of employment or their house to other areas, a place where people can live, work, and play and get around on foot. Another goal is to ensure that new development is at a human scale and that it relates to the scale and desired character of its surroundings. And this is important as we have seen the influence of Main Street radiate out from that central spine. It's moved 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks out to where we've got really strong pedestrian activity happening off of Main Street now. And a lot of very large-scale development pressure is happening on the outer edges of the C4 zone. So how that relates to the surrounding stable neighborhoods is important for us to think about as we move forward with these design guidelines. The river, the Reedy River and the waterfall is such a wonderful natural asset that creates the center and the heart of downtown Greenville. And given all the celebration that the river has received lately as the bridge came down, the Camperdown Bridge came down, and all the development along the river, we want to make sure that we're protecting that asset and other natural assets that contribute to the environment of downtown Greenville. And finally, ensure development is inclusive of all people. There's such a wide variety of people who use the downtown spaces, and we want to make sure that it continues to be an inclusive place for people of various physical abilities, people of various income levels, workers, residents, visitors. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome in downtown Greenville. Switching gears to the existing design guidelines, a little orientation to the existing design guidelines. Right now there are 5 major types of design guidelines. There's the left 2 here, all projects, which is the AP guidelines, and the signage guidelines, the S guideline. These apply to the entire area. And then we have a specific pedestrian zone identified, which I'll show you in a moment. And the vehicular zone is everything else outside that pedestrian zone. And then the West End Historic District. There are a total of 26 policies in the existing guidelines. Each of these policies has at least one design guideline that explains how to carry out the statement. In the current code, there is no requirement on how many guidelines have to be followed. That creates a little bit of confusion and subjectivity as we move forward with planning projects. This map that I have up on the screen right now is the entire project area, the entire area covered by the C4 zoning. And that's also where all the AP guidelines, which there are 11 of those, they apply to this entire area. In addition, the one signage policy applies to the entire area as well. Then the pedestrian zone, I mentioned, there are 6 policy statements that apply just to this zone here outlined in green. This was, as I mentioned earlier, part of the reasons for wanting to update this is that I think back in the days when the current guidelines were adopted 16 years ago, people thought it was aspirational to think that the entire North Main area would be walkable. But now it's not only that, it's several blocks off of Main Street that have become walkable. And so calling just this area the pedestrian zone is kind of a misnomer. The vehicular zone has 3 policy statements that cover this area, 3 additional policy statements that cover this area. The name itself, although this is where people drive in and they find their parking structure or their parking lot and they park there, this is now a very strong pedestrian area as well, and the surrounding neighborhoods are trying to connect in as pedestrians. So to call this a vehicular zone really doesn't describe what goes on in this area with pedestrians and bicyclists and others. And then finally, the West End has 5 policy statements that apply strictly to the West End Historic District. So an example, I'm just going to flip through a few examples of some of these design standards. Maintaining the line of building fronts on the block, making sure that we don't have one building that sits way off the sidewalk and another building that sits directly up to the sidewalk. We need to minimize the visual impacts of exterior lighting. Back then, I think that some of the guidelines were written to prevent glare onto neighboring properties. But in today's world, architects are using lighting as a real sculptural element of the building, and we need to be able to accommodate that. Signage, making sure that they're in balance with the overall character of the project. Sidewalks need to be continuous and convenient to provide a pleasant walking experience. Street furnishings are desirable and should enhance the pedestrian experience without becoming obstacles. We also have some guidelines in the current document that speaks to buffering parking lots. And given that back then, 16 years ago, there were many, many parking lots that were adjacent to Main Street, this was a really important guideline. Now, fewer and fewer parking lots, still some, and we need to make sure that we're ensuring that when there is a parking lot up against the pedestrian zone, that it is not a detractor and people still feel safe. Street lighting should be used to enhance the pedestrian experience. This is a really great technique for communicating that there's something really vibrant going on in an area. If there's lighting at night and there are people walking, people start to feel safe and they want to go see what's going on down there. In the pedestrian zone, there's more specific things about pedestrians in that first floor environment. So the street level of the building should be pedestrian friendly. Building materials, because you've got pedestrians that are slower than cars and they notice things like materials, they need to be compatible with the dominant materials of the area. In the vehicular area, more and human scale, which has been defined over the years as being more transitioning into neighborhood community or neighborhood scale outside of the district. And then the street level of the building should be pedestrian friendly still, even if this area is identified as the vehicular area. Our team is really getting started, but we've identified perhaps a few opportunities to add to the design guidelines. So I'll just go over a few of those now. One opportunity is a lot of communities have embraced green stormwater, and with that, it creates an opportunity to have a unique streetscape environment and also a teaching streetscape environment, so that people that are using the streets can learn about their region and the rainfall and where it goes and what kind of pollutants are in it. Really great opportunity to integrate that into Greenville, given the Reedy River just in the heart of the district. Public art. There is a public art commission, but the art also has an influence on the look and feel of a space. And so perhaps there's some pieces we need to cover in the downtown design guidelines about location and placement of art so that it protects the historic landscapes that you have here with the streetscape on Main, and also contributes positively to the neighboring buildings and the plazas that it inhabits. Plazas and interior courtyards. As we move out from the center of the district, the parcels are bigger and bigger, given that some of them were never subdivided into smaller parcels, but then some have been consolidated back again into one ownership. And these create barriers sometimes for pedestrians, and so making sure that inner courtyards are encouraged and that the treatment of buildings around those inner courtyards are positively contributing to the safety and the excitement around those inner courtyards. Building facades, the current guidelines talks about vertical articulation, meaning that after a few floors it needs to set back, and so there's a lot of information in the current guidelines about setbacks, but there's also a rhythm as you walk down the street, and when you walk past a building that's 800 feet long and there's very little horizontal difference in the building, it's just this rigid rhythm of windows, it becomes so friendly to the pedestrian, whereas if you have setbacks and breaks in the materials and various different articulation approaches as you move down the sidewalk, that also provides a great opportunity for pedestrians. So with that, I'm going to conclude the presentation piece of Workshop 1, but we also encourage you to be on the lookout for the next meeting, which will be in late February, and we will send out invites to that, much like we did this round of workshops, and then if you attended this round of workshops, we will make sure that we add you to the list moving forward. Between now and the end of October, we hope that you'll take the online survey at the link that is here. And then also, if you have any questions or comments, would like to discuss anything related to the design guidelines, Mary Douglas Hirsch, the Downtown Development Manager, is available for questions and comments. Her email address and phone number are shown at the bottom of the slide. So thank you, and we look forward to you participating in future rounds of workshops. Have a great day.